Hello everyone, my name is Sincerely Switch. In today's video, I will be cutting down the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster in half. Now before we get started, I did create one rule in regards to the Echo Fighters for this video. To keep everything fair between the Echo Fighters and the main fighters, I decided that I would also only be cutting half the Echo Fighters, which in our case is 3. To get started, I quickly cut Dr. Mario and Pichu, as they are way too similar to Mario and Pikachu, and definitely way less popular. For the same reasons, I also cut Young Link, Toon Link, and Zero Suit Samus, as they are similar to Link and Samus in terms of representing their series. I know that Toon Link and Young Link are different combat-wise, but in my opinion that wasn't enough to justify their inclusion. I also cut Jigglypuff and Snake pretty early on. Snake, I feel like, is the third-party character that fits Super Smash Bros. The least, and is also probably the hardest to get licensing for, so if you're gonna cut any of the third-party characters, I feel like Snake is the one that Sakurai would cut first. Also, Jigglypuff is by far the least popular Pokemon here. And while being part of the main 12, I don't think is iconic enough of a Smash Bros. Character to keep. Next, to trim down on the Fire Emblem roster size, I cut Roy, Chrom, and Ike. It's like they're all pretty similar to each other, unlike Corrin and Robin, who offer water moves and magic to make them different from Marth and Lucina and all of the other sword fighters in the game. Next, I cut Falco, Wolf, Mii, Sword Fighter, and Mii Gunner. I feel like Star Fox is not popular enough, although it's coming back, to have 3 characters, and I feel like Fox represents the series fine on his own. I then decided to cut Mii Sword Fighter and Mii Gunner, because I feel like you can have one Mii and tweak how it works to represent all 3, and then you would still have the customizable characters and the Mii outfits for the next Smash game. I then also quickly decided to cut Steve and Kazuya. Steve I definitely feel like is an everyone is here character. If you're not going to have everyone here, Steve would be the first to cut on the list. I also feel like Kazuya is not as popular in my opinion, and I don't personally enjoy him, which is why I cut him. I then cut Dark Samus, Little Mac, and Bayonetta. Dark Samus I feel like is the most similar Echo, along with Dark Pit, however I like Dark Pit better. And then Little Mac and Bayonetta, I feel like their series aren't as popular, and while Little Mac does fit as a retro character, I feel like I like the other ones better, which is why I cut Little Mac. Then looking at more DLC characters, I cut Piranha Plant, Joker, and Hero. Piranha Plant not being as popular as other Mario characters, Hero being a third-party character that I feel like franchise is big, but isn't quite as big as some of the other ones, or fits less with the Nintendo characters. And the Joker I really wanted to keep. I think Persona is definitely a big franchise, but I feel like when looking at everyone else on the roster, I don't feel like he makes top half. Next, I chose to cut Villager, Wii Fit Trainer, and Ridley. Ridley I really wanted to keep, but same reason as Joker, I don't feel like it's popular enough to keep. And then Wii Fit Trainer definitely isn't as big, is more of a joke character anyways. And then for Villager, I felt like Isabelle was a better representation of Animal Crossing, as if you've never really gotten into the franchise, I feel like it's more recognizable to have a cute little dog to represent the franchise than just a villager who's essentially just some random dude. I next cut Captain Falcon, Duck Hunt, Diddy Kong, and King K. Rool. For Captain Falcon and Duck Hunt, I feel like their series weren't as popular, and then Duck Hunt wasn't really as interesting compared to the other retro characters. And then for King K. Rool and Diddy Kong, I feel like Donkey Kong, being more of a side franchise to Mario, didn't need to have 3 reps. I definitely feel like Diddy Kong deserves to stay, but at that point, I feel like there were definitely characters who deserved to stay more than Diddy Kong. I feel like, in terms of Donkey Kong characters, why have Diddy Kong versus not having others? And in my mind, it made sense to just have Donkey Kong represent the whole franchise. Next, I decided to cut Ness, Lucas, Cloud, and Sephiroth. I don't think Earthbound is as popular, and while Ness and Lucas have definitely gained popularity in the Smash community, I didn't really know which one to cut and which one to keep, and I decided at the end of the day it was best to cut both of them. And then Cloud and Sephiroth, I feel like didn't fit as well in terms of third-party characters. I feel like Castlevania and other series were bigger and had a more long-term effect, and kind of felt more in line with the other Nintendo characters that were mainly reducing this roster too. And while I would have liked to keep Sephiroth, I couldn't keep Sephiroth and cut Cloud, so I had to cut them both. Next, I made a list of any character that I would consider cutting. Unfortunately, that list wasn't long enough to save any of them. I had to cut Game & Watch, Dark Pit for the final Echo, Lucario, Rob, Terry, and Sora. I quickly cut Pyro and Mythra after. I wanted to have them add a Xenoblade 3 rep in the next game and have one from every title, but I feel like in terms of keeping other characters, it was best just to keep Shulk, and then you could have one old Xenoblade character and one new one in the next game. Next, I had to cut Incineroar and Min Min. Incineroar I feel like is the least popular Pokemon remaining, and we have plenty of other Pokemon on the roster still, and then Min Min also wasn't as popular enough, and I feel like is a unique fighter, it was just best to keep other characters. We now only need to cut one more character at this point, and I was really between King Dedede and Olimar. I've never personally cared for Pikmin, and I feel like Olimar isn't that big as a character, but in terms of keeping Pikmin, a main Nintendo series still in, I had to cut King Dedede. This is our new Smash roster cut in half. Let me know what you think about this in the comments and which characters you would cut. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and hitting the subscribe button.